Hey, welcome to Next Level Empowerment. Yay. Today I have with me the redoubtable, a word I don't get to use often enough, Dahlia Cummings, who is the founder of Rebel Academy. And I am really excited to have this conversation because we were talking before this. And this is somebody who, like me and who, like a lot of you, has been raised with, gone through a lot of stuff piled on her. She has broken through. She has dared to question, dared to live as her true self. And I can't wait to introduce you to her. Hi, Dahlia. She is, oh my God, you're so awesome. And you are also the founder of Rebel Academy. I forgot to mention that. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today and to share my story and hopefully encourage someone.
Yes, yes. I don't know about you, but I've met so many women who had incredible ideas for entrepreneurship and just who could not see through that veil of like the toxic rules we've all been given about everything, but they couldn't see through it in terms of business and they
Yeah.
couldn't find their way to themselves. So please share about what you've come through and where you've come to.
Absolutely. And so so I don't forget, as I get ready to talk, I would love to, don't let me forget to talk about foundations. Just remember that word and it'll trigger what I need.
Foundations. Where's my
So,
pen? Okay, I got you.
so my life has definitely been what I am going to call a beautiful roller coaster. There were times that were terrifying, but also times in which I was at this high point of learning who I was. So, adopted into a single parent home. And this was now, in all fairness, I try to give grace where grace is due. To her, this was back in mid 70s, early 80s. So the type of support that should have been around to help someone potentially raise a child wasn't there. And so I literally hit all of the abuse boxes from mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. And so essentially, when you go through things like that, you kind of lose your identity. Like when people are pouring toxicity into you consistently, and these are people that you are supposed to trust, that are supposed to be around you to help build you up. As a child, you think, well, they must know what they're talking about. So I grew up thinking I was not intelligent. I grew up thinking I was not beautiful, that I was too tall, that the things that I loved were wrong. Like I was heavily into sports, but nobody else in my family was into sports. So my love for sports was wrong. So I became a people pleaser very, very, very early in life. And that translated into my relationships with men, even in my friendships. I became the person that people would use uh, versus honor and respect. And I just learned that was, what my life was supposed to be. That eventually evolved into abusive relationships because, again, I didn't know my worth. And I would say the very first wake up call I had was when I became a mom. When I had my daughter at age 25 was the first time that I had to kind of stop and take a look at myself because I knew something was off. I just didn't know what. But what I knew for sure is that I did not want my daughter to live the life that I had lived. And so it forced me to look outside of myself and outside of my past because I knew I wanted better for her. So that was the first time I would say life, I don't, maybe allowed me to see better, or I was able to open up my eyes and see that there's potentially something different. But even through that, like I said, I was single parent. Father was completely not involved. Neither was his family. But I did my best to raise her as, so that she could be the flourishing woman that she is right now. She's 25. And so I'm very proud of the person that she is today, and in no way, shape, or form am upset or angry about any of the sacrifices emotionally, mentally, or anything that I made for her. And, we can fast forward probably into another 10, 15 years of again, me growing, but still not loving myself enough to know that I could actually grow. So growing in appearance, growing business wise, growing in the way that I thought I could look, growing in everything else but inside of me. And it was December of 2021 where I had a run-in, a negative interaction with my mother, and it made me question everything. It was just like, what girl, what are you doing? Like your daughter's grown, she's out on her own. Like, why are you still sitting here trying to serve places that are telling you that they don't want what you have or they don't honor what you have? And I tell people in true Dahlia fashion, because I am a 0 to 100 real quick. I just decided I was going to leave. I packed up. I was in a 4 bedroom, 3 bath house. Packed up the entire house, sold all major appliances, gave away almost like 10 garbage bags of clothes and shoes to Goodwill, and just packed up my car uh, in Ohio. I was in Cleveland, Ohio, and drove almost 1,300 miles to Texas. I had never been to Texas. Found an apartment, moved in an apartment, and I have been here ever since. And it is me that moment. I say when I left the driveway that day was the day I literally put the mantle down. I put everything down and just left it uh, because I was so trying to find me. And it is a decision. First off, I'm completely in love with Houston unexpectedly, but it was a journey that I will never, ever regret because I needed it. And to look back, I was worth it.
Oh my God. That is the best story. I'm like, tell me more, mom. Tell me more. Wow. Texas, you just picked it out of the air. Like you could have gone anywhere.
I ended up being on a networking call one day and connected with a young woman who happened to be a life coach. And I was telling her that I was like, I'm feeling like I need to leave. I just don't know where to go. And honestly, being from Cleveland, Ohio, you get all 4 seasons. So I was just like, yeah, I would love to go someplace that I'm not shoveling snow. And she said to me, don't just think about the weather. She was like, ask yourself, where do you want to go that you feel like it's going to feed you? She was like, because
Yes.
wherever you live is going to determine your level of success. She was like, if you want to go someplace, you want to be someplace where there are people around you that are going to feed you, where there's an environment that's going to make you feel like, this is someplace I could grow. And I did not have all of those answers. I literally was just Google mapping the United States. And I happened to see Galveston Island. And that was actually the very first thing that drew me to Texas. I was like, oh, there's an island down there. And went to church one day, quick conversation with my pastor. I was a little frustrated, like I'm praying, I'm trying to figure out where to go. God ain't answering me. And he was like, have you ever thought about Texas? And so it was just like, it was, random, for him to just pull Texas. And no lie, at that moment, I was like, okay, Texas it is. And I was like, let's try Houston. And that was it. Like, so it was not, it was strategic, but I would say it was more strategic on God's end than it was on my end. When I got here is when I started to realize all of the opportunities and the environment and the diversity that's here that really does feed my spirit and my soul.
That's amazing. I had the exact opposite, well, not exact, but I had the opposite experience. I went out to California and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, by the way.
Okay.
And I went out to California and I was there for 11 years and it was a very painful experience. There were lots of rewarding things, but I hated it. I just hated it and I could not grow. I was trying to be an entrepreneur and it was like I was running as fast as I could, but my feet seemed to be off the ground, like I couldn't get anywhere. Came home to Cincinnati, suddenly I've got a life. Um, and well, at least I had to rebuild my life because I had fallen down and gone boom, financially, physically. So I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about when like when you hit bottom, and it's not just the hitting bottom, is it? It's when you get
No.
done with being on the bottom.
There it is. It's when you're done, when you're like, you know what? Screw this. Like, I'm not, anything else is better.
Yes.
Anything else is better, and I'm willing to see what's on the other side of that fence. I don't care if it if and everyone was like, I didn't even tell anyone I was leaving. My daughter knew, my mother knew,
Yeah.
but that was it. No one else knew out of people that had been in my life my entire life, because I did not want anyone to tell me, don't jump the fence. I needed to just trust whatever's on the other side of this fence is going to be on the other side of this fence. If it's that bad, I can always come home. But I had even relegated to myself that if I get over there and that sucks, there's 49, 50 other states that I can flitter to. I can go overseas. I'm single. I can do whatever I want to do. Maybe it
Yeah.
ain't the US, but I was willing to try.
Well, you said something earlier when we were talking that I thought was the most beautiful phrase, and so representative of what we women do. You said you were at a certain point, you were smiling in the light and crying in the dark, and
Yeah.
that you looked successful. What was going on?
So I always have had a resilience, and even when with raising my daughter, it was always important for me to make sure that I was able to provide for her. Again, growing up in a place where you have to always look out for yourself, I was very self-sufficient. And
Yeah,
so I knew I was intelligent for others, if that makes sense. It wasn't
it does.
I'm intelligent, right? It was like I knew I was intelligent for others. I
Mm.
was getting contracts for businesses. I was building websites for companies without training. Just, oh, this is a good idea. I would just go in the system and figure the entire thing out. So I was
Mhm.
really good at making others successful. So I always had those accolades. And what's interesting is how Facebook gives you those, reflections or memories.
Yeah,
And I think it was 15 years ago, I won a award for a nonprofit that I was in for that I was like I won like the National Recruiter Reward. They were an international organization. And it was
yeah,
people from all over the world that were saying, I spoke to Dahlia and she is the reason why I'm here at your organization. And so not only did I win that award, I won because of that. The sites that I was overseeing got awards. And even in that moment, I still did not recognize that I was the juice, right? It was like
right,
I, they were, in my mind, they were the gas. I just
right.
was working through. And so again, so people would look at me like, oh my God, like you've gotten this, you're getting awards, you've started a company. Right, because to me, the name or the company or whoever's name I had on my t-shirt or on the business card was the value. And
Right.
so, but when you get home, that that business card doesn't mean anything. You know,
Mm.
when you get home is when your voice starts to manifest and you're watching a TV show and you happen to see someone get engaged and you start crying, or you're
Yes.
right, you're watching a movie and a mother hugs a daughter and I'm crying, or now I don't even want to watch I don't want to watch a TV show no more because I'm pissed off. I'm done, right? Or I'm overcompensating in my parenting because I feel like, I definitely don't want my daughter to go through this. So let me make sure I am this and I'm her superwoman.
Right.
So that's what I mean. Like people would see me out and about and have no clue of the things that I was really, really struggling with in my own head and honestly in my own heart. Because at that particular point in my life, I was still living in the why. Like, why did all this happen? Well, I
Yeah.
had a real hard victim mentality, which I understand, and I never run from it because I feel like the asking of why I felt like I owed God. Like, dude, like I'm like, come on. Like I'm adopted into an abusive home. So I had two mothers that didn't want me. Like that was the mentality that I had. Like, but you're telling me I'm supposed to be filled with love. Like, how do I love a daughter, but was not a loved daughter? Am not a loved daughter. Like those two things are, contradictory in my mind at the time. So yeah, so people would look at me and see I was always very well put together. You
Yeah.
never knew. But once I got home and looked at myself in the mirror, whether it was physically or mentally, or again, like you, wanting to do something different, but having that voice in the back of my head tell me you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not beautiful enough. This is why he looked at this girl over here because you're not thin enough. Like it was all of that that I would just deal with
Yes.
in silence.
Oh my God. There's so many ways, there's so many places that the victim thing hides. And I think
Hmm.
why is one that's not generally talked about enough. Because the thing that's happened, why means you think it's your fault and you can fix it. That's what I think. And if you instead go, how can I win? Where can I go and take my power back? Then you're cooking with gas. Then you're moving forward. And I didn't always know that either. Like you, I was like, And I wasn't abused in that way, but I still got the mentality.
Yeah.
And women get it. And what I'm interested to hear from you, because I'm obviously not a woman of color, but what is the part of the message that comes to the woman of color from the masculine only, the toxic masculine? What is that message? Do you have a sense of that you
No,
could share?
sure. I think that our community is creates the masculine woman. And to be honest with you, I think the community creates toxic masculinity in women.
Ours
Because
does too, actually, but go ahead. Yeah. I
uh,
don't mean to take that away from you. I apologize. Go ahead. Please speak on.
well, because, as I said, you're raised in a situation, I was raised to be so in tune with breath and movement because I had to figure out how to maneuver through the space to where I would not get abused. So how she walked, like when my mother would come in the house, I would pay attention to her footsteps. How was she breathing? What was the tone of her voice? What is the look on her face? Like to the point where you have to break someone down like that just to be able to move. Inevitably, you become that person, you become what you study. And so if you're constantly around aggression, anger, secrecy, the lessons of trying to be that it's not okay to be different. It's not okay to embrace who you are. It's not okay to speak proper, you know, proper English without, being called a half breed or, that all of those things that it's just not okay. Like, for instance, instead of my mother teaching me the value of being a Black woman, what she did was she forced me to watch a TV show, oh my God, called Eyes on the Prize. And I don't know if anyone has ever watched Eyes on the Prize or if you have ever watched Eyes on the Prize, but at the time, I want to say it was on like WVIZ or PBS, like one of those public broadcasting stations. And it came on weekly, I'll say. And it basically rehashed or revisited uh, what happened during slavery, the MLK era, etc. But a lot of it was focused on the violence. So it was not focused necessarily on the empowerment of it. It was focused more on the violence. So I grew up watching Black individuals being hosed down. And in her mind, she was teaching me pride and where I'm coming from. But all I'm absorbing as a child is I'm worth nothing because this is what this TV show is showing me. So in our community, we don't necessarily talk about the opposite side. Like, we don't talk about kings and queens. We may refer to
Mm.
each other as kings and queens, but I guarantee you, if I really went to have a conversation with most Black women around, name me three queens, and we cannot say Aphrodite, we cannot say the typical. We don't know. We don't know about our actual history because what even in our homes we are taught about our worth with nothing. We have to be on defense. We have to. We have to. We have to. And being in this environment here has kind of forced me to change that. That yes, there are going to be people in the world that look at me, say I'm a Black woman, and automatically disqualify me. Absolutely. But one of my last mentors, who was a Nigerian man, said to me, "Why would you add yourself to that mix?
Mhm.
If you have enough people that you already know are going to hold you down, think smaller of you, why are you adding yourself to that?" And when he said that, I was like, oh, that was simple and powerful. But yeah, I think there's such a, I mean, the culture of Black women, the thought process of what I call the bottom of the triangle, and the bottom of the triangle is the mentality that there's only enough for me. There's not enough for all. I think that comes from the community, which is why Black women, a lot of times, we are unable to connect in the way that we need to and uplift each other as an entire whole versus just individual. That there's a lot of competition. To me, it boils all back down to how you were taught and how we were taught to see ourselves as individuals. And as I've grown and as I've started to peel back my layers and actually embrace my own story, and use my story to help others, is when I've started to see that because I'm embracing my own story, her story is not a threat to me. Because our
Oh,
story is
that's
actually
so gorgeous.
right. Her story is not a threat. And I think we're raised that the other story is a threat. The other story is more powerful. But a lot of times it's because we have not fully embraced the totality of our own full story. We don't color in our pictures. We have our book and we want to look at everybody else's. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing is if we own our story, we realize the power in ours and the power in hers.
Thank you so much for that. I okay, so the whole thing of privilege,
Hmm.
being a white woman, I see it coming from the masculine down to all women.
Hmm.
But I can't, but privilege works that way, where if you're at the top of any particular hill, you can't really see down. You just can't. You
Right.
have to be right. You have to be at that place in order, and then you can see all the way up. But it's only within limits. Like I'm not a black woman. I'm not a Mexican woman. I'm not a, like I'm not a disabled person. Like there's all kinds of ways in which I have this, this, what's the word I just used? My mind just went blank, but I have that favored position. But I always thought if I were a black woman, I think the predominant thing I would have to work through, and you tell me if this is a reality in the people that you know, I would be afraid because this culture is just so cruel and so mean. And we've seen what happens to black people, driving while black. Are you kidding me? Nope, not
Yeah.
kidding you. You know, like that's the thing I would have to work through the most. It's like, I don't want to leave the freaking house. But that's because fear has been the big thing I've worked through to get to my own self. And when you say masculine, um, are you talking about the stuff that I recognize as the toxic masculine, which is we have to fight each other instead of come together, understand each other, and work together? Is that what you mean when you say you bring in the
Yeah.
masculine?
So yes. So on one hand, when I say masculinity, I'm talking about the let's say the spirit of feminine versus masculinity, which
Yes.
receiving versus always doing. I definitely think our culture is one where on some hand, understandably, are taught that we just have to do. You have to work 4 or 5 times harder than the person next to you in order to be seen. You have to. Um, and while on a lot of levels that is true, I mean, I've experienced that in my own world. However, I also, I think as I continue to grow, struggle with some of the other terms of toxic masculinity when we are talking about the role of men and women. I happen to be a little bit more conservative, and because I've lived from my own journey, have lived the life of being in a relationship and doing as much as him, thinking as much as him, uh, supporting as much as him. What I realized is I was him. like, I was him. And I was taking away even the opportunity for me to see, is he able to provide? Is he able to support? Is he able? Because I was so focused on meeting him right where he was at. And at least from my wiring as a woman, that's just not where I want to be. That is not my area that's not peace for me. Now, do I have the ability to do as much? Absolutely. But I don't need to always prove it. And I think one of the conflicts sometimes that I see when women talk about toxic masculinity is that it can be very subjective. It's toxic when I'm looking at a man complaining about not having a woman in his life to cook for him, for instance, just to throw an example out there. But when I see a woman whose man is loving her so hard that she has no problem cooking for him, I then make statements like, "Oh, let that kind of love find me." Well, you can't have both.
Okay.
You're right. You can't have both. You either like having a man in your life that is owning his masculinity and doing things such as providing, I don't know, this generic stuff, fixing the car,
Right.
fixing the crap in the house. So you don't have to, but
Mhm.
then you can't uh demean it when you see it out in the world. Like I spend, I'm on when I'm on social media, it's probably where I see it the most, where I'll see it, if a guy is talking, complaining about, not having that nurturing or what the woman that he wants in his life, that women are like beating him down, like what you need is a mom, and saying stuff like that. But at the
Okay.
same time, you're complimenting the other man, but you want your man to open the door for you.
Well,
So
don't you think it's situational? Don't you find that it's situational? Maybe not.
well, and I think that's what I mean when I say we can't have both. Like, I definitely think that there's some women that maybe don't want, a guy to do XYZ. But at the same time, I've yet to meet a woman in real life that does not want her man to be a man.
Right.
I've never met it. I have never met a
Right.
woman that has that type of love and respect for the man in her life, who is quiet and passive and doesn't stand up for the family or protect the kid. Like, I've never seen it. And so that's why, to me, I struggle a little bit with, I think, the culture of toxic masculinity that has been put out there, because some of it, I think, is truly just stripping away the core of what a man is. And if maybe you don't need your man to open the door for you, maybe you're the type of woman that's just like, well, we both need to cook, and that does it. That's fine. But even with him cooking, he's still providing masculine traits because he's caring for you. So I think maybe in today's society, for me, the way I define masculinity is different, and it's very inclusive of a lot of things and not just toxic because it's coming from a man and a man is saying, I require respect. Like, to me, that's general, and who doesn't want respect, and do you want a man that doesn't demand respect? So yeah, so I get a little, I don't know, hazy in the toxic masculinity world. I just think it's
Yeah.
a bit much.
Well, no, this is a really, I'm so glad because something I didn't make clear, and that I remember the first time I heard it was from Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And she gives this wonderful talk. You can find it somewhere on YouTube, where she talks about there is divine masculinity. It's
Hmm.
not like the male is bad, the masculine is bad. It's not about that. The
Right.
divine, there's the divine feminine and the toxic feminine, and the divine masculine and the toxic masculine. And to me, I guess the core of that is when you are dealing with a person, with another human, how open are you in terms of accepting them for right where they are, knowing that you don't know a whole lot and you're willing to learn,
Hmm.
and that you want to give them respect and you want respect. Because when it
Right.
gets down to those basics, then you know when to walk away. Like, if you can't just get respect, that is a boundary. You try to get respect, you can't get it. You're like, I'm still not getting it. Okay, I've told you I need it. You're still not giving. I'm done. I don't have to
Right.
submit myself to abuse. So that's, and at least what I mean by toxic. And also, I think there's a systemic, the system that we all grew up, excuse me, that we all grew up in was, and I mean, like the social shoulds, regardless of how each of our uh, cultures has defined it, has been defined within a certain framework that was created by rich white men hundreds of years ago for rich white men. And so all of us are like barreling in here at this point going, excuse me, but I have a chair here too. And they're going, what are you
Right.
talking about? Right. So we have two options. We either continue to try to fit in with this culture, which was not made for us, or we find ways out of it, which brings up your Rebel Academy. Sorry, Rachel, Rebel Alchemy. I beg your pardon.
Fine.
And I have to remind you, you said something about foundations. So would
Yes.
you like to talk to us about both?
Sure. So Rebel Alchemy is the name of my company, and it literally has come from it's my baby, it's my heart, because it truly is me. The name itself just speaks to the fact that I feel like I've had to rebel against a lot of things, if not everything, that I was pretty much taught in life, and learn how to alchemize it. And so what I literally do is I call myself a foundations coach, because I literally help women get back to the foundations. And one of the reasons I said to remind me of foundation is that earlier in the conversation, we were talking about how a lot of times women get stuck when they're trying to build something new, when they're trying to be entrepreneurs. And so one of the first programs that I actually ever built with the company was a program called Foundations. And it was for brand new entrepreneurs who are struggling with all of the things that most entrepreneurial courses do not talk about. You know, like we have this, again, society, as you said, this structure that when it's time to become an entrepreneur, it's time to learn about your business plan, it's time to learn about finances, it's time to learn about networking. Who's talking to us about the imposter syndrome that's going to pop up at the moment that we even attempt to start this business? Who's talking to us about what it actually means to build a community? Because most of the people in our circle probably don't necessarily believe in us as much as we thought they did. So, right. So it's going to be those that we don't know that are actually going to begin to pour into us and support us first, right? No one talks to us about there is a whole mindset that you are trained and ingrained in when you're an employee, which is a completely different mindset when you're an entrepreneur. So my foundations course is built for women in that space to actually discuss all of those things and have a safe space to discuss all of those things that are going to come up for them through the process. Because once you have it's almost like I am a person who loves to fast, right? And when I would first start to fast, I would always have these negotiations in my brain, right? Like, okay, I'm fasting for 3 days. So within the first half of the first day, I'm already like, well, maybe it's not a full fast. Maybe it's just fasting from 6 a to 6 p, or then 6 p would come around and it's like, well, that's right. Maybe it's just once a day, or maybe I'm just fasting for meat, right? Like it would become this whole negotiation process in my mind, right? And what I learned was pay attention to the patterns. If I understood that, okay, Dahlia, you want to fast. Here's what's going to happen. As you're at probably about noon, you're going to start negotiating with yourself to eat meat. Okay, at about 3 o'clock, you're going to rationalize it to now it needs to be this type of fast. And so once I realized that if I got ahead of my own game, that I could move past it, because I'd be like, yep, right on time, sitting here thinking about I'm only supposed to eat a hamburger. No, you're not supposed. And so it became a game that I was able to win. And what I realized is that if we, especially as women entrepreneurs, are able to get ahead of it, like you're going to go through imposter syndrome and the voice is going to come. You now know that. So when those voices start to come, it's like, oh, you're right on time. Oh, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because you're starting to show up to tell me I'm not good enough. When you starting to get ahead of it, helps you understand that you're on the right path, that you are doing the right things because these are the things that are supposed to happen in order for you to manifest. So Foundations was the very first program that I created. And the second program, which is, I would say, really the foundation of the entire company, is called Space. It's an entire framework. And Space came from me packing up and leaving Ohio and coming all the way down to Texas again because I needed space. And so it is an acronym. I love a good acronym. It is an acronym that stands for safety, permission, awareness, courage, and expansion. And if we have time, I can kind of walk through it quickly. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear it.
So it is perfect whether you are a business owner, whether you're just a woman leading your life, whether you're an employee, because the majority of women in the workforce, which a study was done, are struggling. Like the studies say that we're out here burned out, like
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
stressed, not tired, but actually burned out because giving ourselves the space that we need is something that society has kind of told us that we have to earn, like not that we just deserve. And so the first thing that you need for space is safety, because any environment that is psychologically functional is safe, right? It means
Yep.
a safe environment, whether you're safe at home, you're safe at work, as a manager. And so a lot of women have a tendency to lead from a place of rules and regulations versus a place of authenticity because they don't actually feel safe. Like we have the society pressure of, stay nice, you don't be too harsh. You have to, so being willing to find that safe space within yourself to say, this is the type of manager I am. This is the type of manager I want to be, and I feel okay to start this path. This is the type of mother I want to be and not be judged. This is the kind of wife I want to be. Whatever the platform is, find safety first. And then once you find safety, the next letter is permission.
Yeah.
Give
I'm
yourself,
sorry. Hold on just a second. My computer wants to die. Hold on a second. I
okay,
can always pretend. Okay. Sorry about that. So we
that's
have the
fine.
S. Okay. Go for it.
Absolutely. So we have safety. And so once we find a place of safety, the next stage for us is the P, which is permission. And so what that means is giving yourself permission. But again, permission in whatever that is, whether that's permission to go back to school, whether that's permission to educate yourself, whether that's permission to take a break, whether that's permission to lead your children in the way that you want to lead them, but giving yourself permission to get the tools that you need in order to continue to evolve so that you start to feel like um, that you're operating as who you are. The third level is awareness. Now, the reason awareness is foundational because you're now safe, you're giving yourself permission, but what is around you that's potentially stopping you? Are you
Mm.
aware of toxic friends that are loving and hating you at the same time? Are you aware of how you're coming across to your employees? Are you aware of how you're actually parenting and not just doing things from a very robotic and just systematic place, but are you aware of all of the things that are either around you or within you that's potentially hindering you from moving forward? And so once you unpack that, then you have the C, which is courage. And courage is literally just as it sounds. You are now the mean old lion standing on top, beating your chest because you have decided that you are going to be strong and move past it, right? You're going to be strong and say, okay, if I need to like for me, for instance, with my daughter, I need to parent different and I'm going to take control of that. I'm going to be strong enough within myself to just parent differently, to lead differently, to wife differently. And again, and even though this comes across as like it's just a wake up, snap, snap, keep it moving, we all understand that nothing is this simple. These are small steps that you're taking. So even if it's just, you know what, I want to take control of my weight. Okay. Again, you can use space for that. When you get to courage, okay, I'm just going to do 10 push-ups today. I'm going to take control and just 10. Just 10,
Mm-hmm.
just to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that just leads to the E, which is expansion. And expansion is literally after you've done all of the steps, stretching out and actually walking in whatever that new reality is. So again, if we just take health and you say I'm going to take ownership and I'm going to wake up every day and I'm going to just do 10 setups. The expansion piece is now, what is the consistency? How am I holding myself accountable so that I can grow? I'm going to do this for a week and then reward myself for the growth because that is something that we just do not do. We will do stuff and just keep it going. I know I was notorious for that, but then rewarding yourself for the growth and continuing to grow all through that. And then circling back to the S when it's time for something else to start. So I want to, I now want to, um, I don't know. I want to now go to a public gym and work out. Okay. Do I feel safe enough to do that? If not, why? What is it? Am I afraid of judgment? Am I afraid of how people are going to look at me? It's literally starts all over. And the beauty about this is that, again, you can use it in every facet of your life, because it literally came from me being at the bottom of the barrel of my own life and pulling myself out simply because I gave myself space. And from that, I did not realize that what I was doing was transformational. But walking through those steps and giving myself that sort of space for me to evolve and bloom, um, allowed me to meet me in a way that I had never met myself before.
That's stunning. I think that has to be touching anybody who watches this, because that touches all the aspects of personal growth, right? I mean, it just touches every single aspect. I do want to demystify something, if it's fair for me to ask this.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, like, for 20 years, I was trying to be an entrepreneur, and I was failing and I was failing and I was failing because I was looking to the money instead of to the Lori. Like, what does Lori love, and all of this. And then I realized pretty recently that it wasn't only that. It was that I needed to live the journey before I could teach the journey. And even though I wished that I'd been able to learn it and be done at 35 and be able to start teaching then, oh well, it's now.
Right.
But I do, there's this myth about the success stories of any kind, whether it's financial, personal growth, whatever, that it does feel like you said, like it's like a light switch. It's like, boom, epiphany. I'm good. I'm fantastic. I'm curious how you came up with this space system. Is this something that unfolded for you? Is this something that was an epiphany moment and then you fleshed it out? Like, can you take us inside that a little bit? Is that possible?
Absolutely. And actually it manifested from I hate to call it a tragic incident, but I feel like that's how most people will classify it, when I tell you what happened. So
Oh,
after I left Ohio, you can leave a space but still bring yourself, you know.
oh yeah.
And so I was in a whole new state, everything, but I was still here with me. I knew that I was changing and evolving, but I was still here with me. And I I got hit by a stray bullet. I was
My
in my
God.
car. I was in my car.
What?
I know
Okay.
that's what, like I never quite know how to enter into it because everybody's like, um, but yeah, I was in my car at the grocery store, and it was in a police shootout, and I got hit. And I call it. I told you I love a good acronym, so I call it the moment that I was forced to be still. So, so just for some context, when I got down here, I was in such a bad place that I was over 300 pounds. My blood sugar was over 600. So first and foremost, I should not even have been here. To start there, just blood sugar alone.
I
Um,
hear you. Yeah.
and when that incident happened, and I said I call it my still place, and still is the acronym for where the bullet hit me. It went through my stomach, my intestines, my liver, and my lungs.
Oh my
And
God.
so, right. And so, again, I technically should not have, you know, been here. God forbid, if it wasn't for the fact that I was in the car and it went through the car door, I don't know. And everything has to align. How I was sitting, there's so many pieces to that puzzle that just make it a moment of you need to stop and reflect. And so I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I actually forced them to put me out of the hospital. Um, at the end of 2 weeks, I was about to go stir crazy, and I said, I can't do it. And so I left the hospital with medicine,
Hmm.
and I was still, my body was not healed at all. And so that meant that I was actually at home changing my own bandages. Um, but it was because I could not. It was like I knew that if I stayed there any longer, mentally I told the nurse, I was like, she was like, oh, we just need you to stay here another week. And I was like, if I stay here another week, I'm still gonna be in the hospital, but just in a different wing. So you need to give me whatever you need to give me for me to go home. And if, and I'll come back if there's an issue, but I just can't do it. And so it was that moment. And again, it was still not only for where the bullet went through, but still because it was the first time that I was unable to see me. I would look in the mirror and didn't recognize who I was. I did not know. I kept the person who I was with at the time. I just kept saying, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. Like everything around me looks exactly the same. Like this, I'm looking at a reflection that I could have sworn I've seen,
Yeah.
but I don't know her. It was such an uphill battle for me to accept initially that even though I was still here, Dahlia died that day.
Oh my
And
God.
I just could not figure out who this person was that I was looking at. And I had a coworker at the time who had gone through a major incident with breast cancer. And she said, if I could give you one piece of advice, she said, when I got diagnosed with cancer and I went through all of my treatments, she said, I spent years trying to get back to the old me. And she said, it's not possible. She said, my situation is totally different from yours, but she was like, I don't want you to take years trying to get back to a you that is gone. And
Wow.
so I held on to that and was just like, you know what? I need to figure out who this person is. And so I ended all relationships. I I literally was like, it was almost like once I said, okay, things are different, everything looked different. My mind was different. The way I looked at the world was different. And at that moment, it was like, you know what? What have I done to get myself to this place? And not what did I do to get myself shot, but what have I done to get me here? And God, what are you seeing in me that I don't see in myself? And so it was that journey. It was the journey of me learning how to go outside again and not feel like a target. It was the journey of being willing to sit on the balcony and just
Mm.
be still and exposed, that I started to truly unpack all of the stuff that she had gone through. Um, and every single time and what was funny was people would define it as you're running away. But the truth was I was giving myself space from the situation. Yeah, I was running away, but it was not in a toxic way. It was defined as toxic. But the truth was I was trying to give myself space from whatever was happening that I felt like was hurting me. I just did not realize that it was power in that and that that was not a bad thing. And
Mhm.
so, again, it was going through that I started to unpack that now that I'm here, I do feel safe. I do feel like I have permission to just be me, whoever this person is that I'm becoming. You know, um, I am now aware of the people that were in my life that really didn't care for me. When you go through a near death experience and nobody from your family comes to see you, except
Oh,
my daughter came down,
yeah.
when, you know, I don't even know if I got flowers from my mother. My mother, I mean, when I say it was an eye opener, and that was the awareness part. Like I was aware, I became very aware of who was actually here for me versus how many people that I had always been there for, how many relationships I had carried in order for me to feel safe or to hold on to something that I felt like I needed. Um, it was hella courageous for me to get in that car. I didn't realize that people used to be like, I cannot believe that you just got in the car and left to a place that you've never been. Didn't even didn't even think about it until I had to think back, like how strong has she been, not only to pack up a car and drive, to a place that she's never been, but also to make it through all of that and refuse to die. You know, there were times that I remember her, I always say her because even though it's me, I feel like by doing that, I'm giving her respect, a lot of respect, you know, because we've changed. I have morphed and changed, and I'm no longer that woman. But to look at her and everything that she went through is, I literally one night, and I've since moved since I've got here. But when I got to my new place, which is also serendipitous, and I'll tell you, um, like when I got to my new place, which is more like my dream location when I got here to Houston, I literally bought a bottle of wine and like toasted her because
Oh,
I was like you went through entirely too much and stood strong in it to, so that I would not die. And now it's just time for me to expand. And so that's exactly what I've chosen to do. And the serendipitous part is the day I was shot, it was April 14th. And which tragically enough was literally 10 days after my daughter's birthday. So it was just, you know,
ooh.
it was an emotional, you know, roller coaster for her. And when I decided to move from the place where I first landed when I got to Houston, because literally it was at the corner of my street, like the grocery store was at the corner of my street. So every time I left the house, I would have to drive past the place
Oh
that,
boy.
you know, that had happened. So when I say it was truly me depending upon God and so forth to get me through, even wanting to be back outside again and going to the grocery store and so forth, it truly was. Um, but when I was looking to move, I just kept hearing in my spirit, like, you need to be out of here by the 15th. You need to be out of here by the 15th. I didn't know what it meant. I was just like, okay, fine. I procrastinated and procrastinated. And I knew I was procrastinating because leaving that environment was truly closing the chapter. And so, you know, it's
Mm.
like you're ready to close the chapter, but it's at the same time, you're like, I gotta close the chapter. Um, and finally called the moving company. The week before, this
Wow.
deadline that's in my mind, right? I was just like, fine, let me just call. I call and the lady says, oh yeah, we can move you on the 14th. That's no problem. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And didn't think about it and went out to dinner with a friend of mine like 2 days later. And so she was like, so are you moving? I said, oh yeah, I called them and they're going to move you on the 14th. And she kind of tilted her head. And it was when she tilted her head is when I was like, oh my God, April 14th was the day that I moved into my quote unquote, like where I like heart of downtown Houston, where I completely am in love with the space and always wanted to kind of live in the downtown area. And I was like, so it's literally like that moment is now also connected with not just the tragedy of me sitting in a car and getting hit. It's also connected with me actually stepping into my very next level because it happened literally on the same day.
Oh my God.
So, so yes, when I say it just, you know, it comes from honoring, you know, the woman and the little girl that would cry in the closet, and you know the times that I remember sitting on my floor with a knife because I just didn't want to make it through. Uh,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
times that, you know, I was just out on the street homeless because I had done something, my room wasn't clean, and you know my mother put me out. Like all of those times, the times that family told me I couldn't sleep at their house, you know, the
Oh
times
my.
family laughed when they would find out someone had molested me. When I say all of these moments
Oh,
have just, she took a lot. She
yes,
took
she
a
did.
lot. And I have to honor her in the best way that I know how. And the only way I know how to do that is to take the opportunity that I've been given to sit here, like right now in my life, and give as much of her back to the world as I possibly can because she deserves it.
Oh my God. I just want to like stop the recording, go listen to it again, like right now. I feel very inspired to respond to the old me in that same way. Um, because I know I've gotten caught in that idea of, oh, well, I wasn't very good, and then, you know, I got better. But no, you're so right. The the part of us that gets so wounded that we go, oh, never mind, I'm moving to Texas, or you know,
Right.
or
I'm
I'm
out of
doing
here.
whatever. Yeah, I'm out of this. This is like done. And the people will call it surrender. You know, it can get
Mm,
that label, but boy, that doesn't really describe it at all.
mm-mm.
It doesn't.
It's so much deeper
Yeah.
because she will always be here. Like
Yes.
even as I'm talking about her right now. By the way, Eat, Pray, Love is literally one of my favorite movies for because I feel like I understand. Like so when you
Yeah.
mentioned that her, I was just like, I feel like I understand. I
Yeah.
understand what she was running from, even though it was a different situation. I understood where she
Yeah.
was like, there's something else. Like I've died. I'm stuck here when I remember dreams of other things that people just told me weren't possible. Um, yeah, I'm like I when I talk about her, I feel her in my heart. I love her more than I ever knew that I could love a piece of myself, but I felt like she deserves to sit down. Like she
Right.
deserves to put her feet up and just sit and watch the show. And I plan to give her the best show I can possibly give her.
That's gorgeous. Oh my God, Dahlia. I am at, we can we do this again sometime? Because this is
Absolutely.
magic.
Absolutely.
This
I was
is
going to say
total magic.
I have so when speaking of the best show ever, so one of the things that I have, as I said, I have uh shared her story and my story and how we've even gotten here. And so because of that, I have really been fighting to use my voice more often. And again, once I decided, okay, we're good, opportunities just started coming out the woodwork for me. And so I'm actually headed into my largest speaking opportunity in a few weeks, actually on August 9th. I'll be in Detroit at it's called the Leadership Experience Tour. And I'll actually be talking about space, the space framework, and in totality, you know, moved from Ohio down here. And I'll really be expounding upon it and giving women something to think about. And so I will I will be a whole nother person after that situation because I will have
Yes.
been exposed to something completely different. So I would definitely love to circle back with you and just share with you post that occurrence, and I can share, you know, with you the link to that if you want to see it.
Yes,
Uh,
please.
the tickets
Yes.
do cost, but as a speaker, I get 50% off for anyone that is interested. So normal the virtual tickets I think normally are 50, but for if I send you the link, it's 25. So I can send you the link if you want to see it. Um, and you can as I'm telling everyone that is personal to me, you can watch me continue to grow in real time because that will be my first time on a national stage.
Wow. That that's yes, and thank you because I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of people who are going to want to be attending either live or virtually. I'm one
Mhm.
of them. And thank you for the 50% off. That's just epic given what our country is going through in terms of financial squeeze. So much
Oh,
appreciated.
absolutely. No problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and any other information that you want to share with us, I will collect and offer to the audience. And because you know, maybe they want your coaching, right? Maybe they want to go through that space process with you. And I think
So
that they'd be well off to do it.
absolutely. I was like, I do have, and again, I can share this with you. I do have, and if you go actually onto the website as well, but I can share it with you directly. I do have a 5 minute space reset. So you can, the reason I'm so in love with this framework that I felt like that she built for me is because you can even use it in a moment. Like somebody has gotten up under your skin. No, I can let me give me a second. Let me am I feeling safe in my skin right? Am I feeling safe in my body right now? Let me take a moment. You know, you can
Yeah.
take 5 minutes and just go through a quick space reset. And so that's a free resource that is on the website. But again, I can share that with you. And I do have a full space journal that breaks down the entire process that you can use for it's really like a 6 month journal that you can use for your life. So I do have all of those resources, as well as I am currently writing a book, One Space for Business and Space for Life. So those two I am working on and plan to hopefully have the Space for Life portion out by end of October.
Congratulations. That
Thank
is
you.
major. It's totally major. Wow. Well, any last words before we wrap at least this up before you become a mega superstar the first week of August?
Just to again, just to encourage, you know, I don't remember if I said this on while we were recording, but I mentioned, to Lori before we got on here that I've often compared my life to my name. For no, some people don't know that dahlia is a flower, and it's a gorgeous. I mean, if you've never seen a dahlia flower, like literally the website is dahlia.com, and there's hundreds of different versions, and all of them are so unique. And when I realized that it is possible to take a seed, shove it up under a bunch of manure, and if that seed fights hard enough, it will grow roots, and it can take all of the negativity and all of the toxicity and all of the funk and the stink that comes along with manure and use that to bloom into something absolutely wonderful and gorgeous, then anybody can. You just have to learn how to find what what is the soil, what is the feeding part of this toxicity, and use it for your good. Use it for your good and just love yourself through it, because it is possible to bloom. It's always possible to bloom. You just have to believe and continue to fight. And the fight, it may not be easy. It probably won't be easy. The bigger your story, the harder it's going to be. But I guarantee you, once you fully bloom, it's probably going to be one of the most beautiful things that you've done, and you won't regret it.
Oh, dear God. You are an inspirational woman, and I'm really so happy that we came together this way. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Oh my gosh. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you are as heart blown open and mind blown open as I am, you are thrilled you came here today. And please reach out to Dahlia, because why wouldn't you? Are you crazy? Thank you for being here. We'll see you next Friday on Next Level Empowered. Thanks, Dahlia. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Talk to you later.